The year was 2189, and humanity had spread its wings beyond Earth. People lived on Mars and Europa now. Mining ships traveled through the solar system, collecting resources from asteroids and moons. Earth had changed much in the last century, but the stars beyond remained out of reach. Commander Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant and looked at the display screen. At 45, his hair was going gray at the temples, but his eyes were sharp and alert. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion 15 years ago. Those memories still haunted him. "Sir, all systems are functioning at optimal levels," said Lieutenant Olivia Grant. She was the best tactical officer Miller had ever worked with. Smart, quick, and always calm under pressure. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Miller replied. "Keep an eye on that new sensor array. The engineers said it might need adjustments." The U.S. Defiant was humanity's pride, the most advanced ship ever built by human hands. Its sleek design and powerful engines were cutting-edge technology. Miller felt proud to command such a vessel. Earth's defense fleet was small but well-maintained. 12 battleships, 20 cruisers, and 50 smaller vessels. Not a large force, but enough to protect Earth and its colonies from any threat they had faced so far. The alert came without warning. "Commander, unknown object approaching from beyond Pluto's orbit," Grant called out, her fingers moving quickly over her console. It's massive, sir." The object appeared on the main screen. At first, Miller thought it must be a mistake. The thing was enormous, easily 20 times the size of the Defiant. "Is that a ship?" he asked, his voice quiet with awe. "Yes, sir. And it's not alone." More objects appeared behind the first one. 5, then 10, then more than they could easily count. Each one dwarfed Earth's largest vessels. "Open a channel," Miller ordered. "All frequencies." For several minutes there was no response. Then, suddenly, the screen changed. A being appeared. It looked almost human, but with pale blue skin and eyes that were too large and too dark. "Greetings, people of Earth," the being said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zortek of the Galactic Hegemony. We come in peace." The next week passed in a blur. The Hegemony, as they called themselves, was an alliance of 47 advanced species. They controlled thousands of star systems across the galaxy. They had been watching Earth for decades, waiting until humans reached a certain level of development before making contact. "We would like to invite humanity to join the Hegemony," Ambassador Zortek said during a meeting with Earth's leaders. "As a protectorate species, of course. You would benefit greatly from our protection and guidance." Miller didn't like the sound of that. Protectorate seemed too close to subject for his taste. The Hegemony representatives asked to tour Earth's fleet. Miller was assigned to show them the Defiant. "This is your most advanced vessel?" asked a Hegemony officer named Krell. His tone made Miller's skin crawl. "Yes," Miller replied stiffly. "She's the newest addition to our fleet." Krell ran a device over the ship's hull, then looked at his companions with a poorly hidden smirk. "How quaint," said another official as they examined the engine room. "You've preserved these museum pieces quite well." Miller saw engineer Sam Porter's face turn red with anger. Porter had helped design the Defiant's engines. They were his pride and joy. "These museum pieces can reach Jupiter in 3 days," Porter said. The Hegemony officials exchanged glances. One of them actually covered his mouth to hide a laugh. "Of course," Krell said with false politeness. "Very impressive for your level of development." As they left the ship, Miller caught Lieutenant Grant's eye. Her expression matched his own thoughts. The Hegemony might have come in peace, but their contempt was clear. And Miller had never trusted anyone who looked down on others. Something told him that Earth's troubles were just beginning. 6 months had passed since the Hegemony ships first appeared in Earth's sky. The initial excitement of meeting aliens had faded. Now, worry grew among Earth's leaders. Jake Miller sat in a meeting room with other fleet commanders. The mood was tense. On the screen, they watched Ambassador Zortek speak to Earth's governing council. The hegemony requires access to your planet's resources, Zortek said. His voice was smooth, but his eyes were cold. Particularly your rare minerals and historical artifacts. This is standard procedure for all protectorate worlds. Earth has not agreed to become a protectorate, replied Counselor Alan Frost. We seek equal membership in your alliance. Zortek's face showed a hint of annoyance. Your species is barely space-capable. Equal membership is centuries away, at minimum. Miller left the meeting with a bad feeling. He headed to the engineering lab where Sam Porter was working. Commander, you need to see this, Porter said as soon as Miller entered. He pointed to a screen showing unusual energy patterns. The hegemony ships have been scanning us. Not just our fleet, everything. Our power plants, communication systems, even our old military bases. Why? Miller asked. I don't know, but they're very interested in our primitive technology. Later that day, Miller met with Dr. Allison Reed, Earth's leading expert on alien cultures. Her office was filled with strange objects she had collected from the hegemony visitors. They don't see us as equals, Dr. Reed said bluntly. In their eyes, we're barely more than clever animals, a curiosity, not a partner. But they claim to want peaceful relations, Miller said. Dr. Reed shook her head. They want our resources and to study us, like we might study ancient civilizations. 3 days later, Miller's fears were confirmed. Earth's council refused the hegemony's demands for unrestricted access to Earth's resources. The response came quickly. A new hegemony ship entered orbit, larger than any before it. On its side was a symbol Miller hadn't seen before, one that Dr. Reed identified as a military designation. Admiral Xandrath appeared on screens around the world. Unlike Ambassador Zortek, he made no effort to appear friendly. His blue skin was darker, marked with scars, and his uniform displayed many symbols. People of Earth, he said, his voice deep and threatening. Your refusal to comply with hegemony directives is disappointing. You leave us no choice but to begin pacification procedures. What does that mean? Asked Counselor Frost. It means you will submit to hegemony authority, or we will enforce compliance. Admiral Xandrath's expression didn't change. You have 30 Earth days to disarm your military, provide unrestricted access to your resources, and accept hegemony governance. If you fail to comply, we will take action. The transmission ended. They can't be serious, Lieutenant Grant said when Miller told his crew. I believe they are, Miller replied. Dr. Reed says the hegemony has done this before with other worlds. They don't view it as conquest, just the natural order. Advanced species rule, less advanced ones obey. The next day, Earth's Council gave Commander Miller a new mission: prepare Earth's defenses for possible attack. It seemed hopeless. How could Earth's small fleet stand against the massive ships of the hegemony? Miller gathered his senior officers on the Defiant. I won't lie to you. The odds are against us. Their technology is far beyond ours. Their ships are bigger, faster, and more powerful. So what do we do, sir? Asked Lieutenant Grant. Miller's face hardened with determination. We use what they don't expect. They think our ships are relics, outdated museum pieces. They'd grown overconfident. He looked at each officer in turn. They think our fleet is a joke. Let's show them what these museum pieces can do. For the first time in days, Miller saw hope in his crew's eyes. They had 30 days to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of their world. Miller's car flew over the Arizona desert at dawn. The rising sun painted the sand gold and red. He was heading to meet someone who might help save Earth. Admiral Frank Dawson lived alone in an old house far from any city. At 82, he had retired 20 years ago. But before that, he had led Earth's fleet during the last major space conflict. The old man was waiting on his porch when Miller arrived. Despite his age, Dawson stood straight and tall. His eyes were clear and sharp. I've been expecting you, Dawson said, offering Miller a firm handshake. "I still have friends who tell me things. So the aliens have given us an ultimatum." "Yes, sir," Miller replied. 30 days before they attack. Their ships are far beyond ours. Bigger, faster, with weapons we can't match. Dawson nodded and led Miller inside. The walls were covered with old photos and star maps. He walked to a bookshelf and pulled a hidden lever. A secret door opened in the wall. "There's something you need to see," Dawson said. Inside was a small room filled with old computer screens. Dawson typed a code into a console, and images appeared. "Have you ever heard of Operation Legacy?" he asked. Miller shook his head. 40 years ago, Earth was developing a new type of warship. Powerful, dangerous. But then we signed peace treaties, and the project was shut down. Dawson pointed to the screen showing large ships hidden in what looked like an asteroid. These ships were never destroyed. They were hidden. The leadership decided they were too destructive for peacetime use, but they still exist. Miller stared at the screen. "Where?" "An asteroid base near Jupiter. The ships need work. They'd been sitting unused for decades, but they're there." Back on the Defiant, Miller shared his discovery with his most trusted crew members. Lieutenant Grant had news of her own. "I've been studying the hegemony ship's communications," she said. "They use a type of quantum technology for instant messaging across space. But here's the interesting part. Our outdated systems can actually disrupt their signals." Engineer Porter joined in. "And I found something else. The hegemony has no concept of electronic warfare or cyber attacks. Their defenses are designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, but they're completely open to hacking." Dr. Reeve added her own discovery. "I've been decoding their tactical communications. The hegemony has standardized battle plans they've used for centuries. They never change them because they've always worked against less advanced species." Miller looked at his team with growing hope. "So what you're all saying is, their advanced technology has weaknesses," Lieutenant Grant finished for him. "Weaknesses our primitive systems might exploit." That night, Miller contacted Earth's Council. He explained what he had learned and proposed a daring plan. "We need to wake up those old ships," he said. "And we need to retrofit our current fleet to take advantage of the hegemony's weaknesses." The Council was skeptical until Dr. Reed shared something else she had discovered. "The hegemony ships have excellent shields against their own energy weapons," she explained. "But they have minimal protection against nuclear weapons. They consider such technology obsolete and not worth defending against." Earth had banned nuclear weapons in space decades ago, but facing extinction, the Council voted to lift the ban temporarily. "We'll call it Project Antiquity," said Miller. "Let them think our fleet is a museum collection. It will be our greatest advantage." Over the next week, Earth's hidden fleet was moved secretly from the Jupiter asteroid base. Engineers and technicians worked around the clock to make the old ships functional again. The hegemony watched Earth's known fleet but saw nothing unusual. They noticed small ships coming and going from Jupiter, but assumed they were routine mining operations. They had no idea that humanity's supposedly primitive technology was about to become their greatest threat. For the first time in over a century, all nations on Earth united with a single purpose: survival. Old enemies set aside their differences. Resources poured in from every corner of the globe. Miller watched as the U.S. Defiant underwent radical changes. Engineers worked day and night, installing new systems and modifying old ones. Some parts came from the hegemony itself, small pieces of technology they had carelessly left behind during their visits. "Will this actually work?" Miller asked Porter as they inspected the ship's new weapons system. "In theory, yes," Porter replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We're combining their tech with ours in ways they would never imagine. It's like putting a modern engine in an antique car, unexpected but effective." Meanwhile, at Jupiter's secret base, the ships of Operation Legacy were awakening from their long sleep. Captain Lisa Martinez had been assigned to command the largest of these vessels, the U.S. Vanguard. At 37, she was known throughout the fleet as a brilliant strategist. "This ship is amazing," she told Miller during a video call. "Designed 40 years ago, but some of its systems are still beyond what we use today, especially the stealth capabilities." 20 days before the hegemony's deadline, Earth began what appeared to be preparations for surrender. Civilian broadcasts discussed the futility of resistance. Military vessels moved into positions that suggested they were standing down. But it was all part of Operation Trojan Horse, a plan to make the hegemony lower its guard. "They're buying it," Lieutenant Grant reported, monitoring hegemony communications. "They've reduced their patrol ships near Earth by 30%. Civilian ships, cargo vessels, mining ships, even passenger liners were secretly converted to combat roles. From the outside, they looked unchanged. Inside, they now carried weapons and improved engines." Admiral Dawson worked with Miller to train Earth's commanders in forgotten battle strategies, tactics that had not been used for generations. "The hegemony expects us to fight like we did in our recent conflicts," Dawson explained to a room full of officers. "But we're going to fight like our ancestors did centuries ago, with surprise, misdirection, and absolute commitment." Lieutenant Grant developed new battle plans that took advantage of the hegemony's dismissal of human tactics. "They expect us to engage them directly," she said, pointing to a holographic display showing ship movements. "Instead, we'll use hit-and-run attacks from multiple directions. Their ships are powerful but slow to turn. We can use that against them." 5 days before the deadline, Miller received a visitor on the Defiant. Dr. Reed arrived carrying what looked like a small silver ball. "I've been working with the science team," she said. "This device can jam the hegemony's quantum communications, but it only works at close range. Someone will need to get near their command ship." Miller took the device. It felt heavy in his hand. "I'll do it myself." The day before the deadline, something unexpected happened. Earth's defense fleet, the ships the hegemony had been watching, suddenly vanished from their sensors. "What happened?" Admiral Xandrath demanded of his technical officer. "Unknown, Admiral," the officer replied nervously. "They appear to have fled the system. Perhaps they abandoned Earth to save themselves." Xandrath laughed. "How typical of a primitive species. No unity, no courage. Prepare the pacification fleet. We will enter Earth orbit tomorrow as planned." What the hegemony didn't know was that Earth's ships hadn't fled. They had activated experimental cloaking devices and moved to hidden positions throughout the solar system. As night fell over Earth's major cities, people looked up at the stars with fear and hope. Tomorrow would determine the fate of humanity. On the bridge of the Defiant, hidden behind Mars, Miller addressed his crew. "Tomorrow, the hegemony comes expecting an easy victory. They think we've run away." He looked around at the determined faces. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The day of the deadline arrived. The hegemony fleet entered the solar system with confidence. Admiral Xandrath brought only 50 ships, a small fraction of the forces available to him. He saw no need for more. After all, Earth's fleet had apparently fled, and the primitive humans would surely surrender at the first show of force. "Move into position above their major cities," Xandrath ordered. "Once they see our weapons targeting their population centers, they will submit." The massive alien ships moved slowly toward Earth, their engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. They passed Mars without a second glance. Behind the red planet, hidden in its shadow, Commander Miller watched on the Defiant's view screen. "All ships report ready, sir," Lieutenant Grant said quietly. Miller nodded. "Send the signal. Operation Antiquity begins now." Throughout the solar system, Earth's hidden ships powered up their engines. The trap was set. "Admiral," said a hegemony sensor officer, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from behind Mars." Before Xandrath could respond, the U.S. Defiant and 5 other ships burst from behind the planet. They moved with surprising speed, far faster than the hegemony had believed possible for Earth vessels. Launch electronic countermeasures, Miller ordered. The Earth ships released small drones that emitted signals specifically designed to interfere with hegemony systems. Immediately, the alien ship's sensors began to fail. Their targeting computers showed multiple ghost images. Their communication systems filled with static. "What is happening?" Xandrath demanded as his view screens flickered. From behind asteroids and small moons, more Earth ships appeared. They were not fleeing. They had been waiting in ambush. "Launch the missiles," Miller commanded. From the Earth ships came dozens of missiles. They were old-style nuclear weapons, modified with stealth technology. The hegemony sensors, already confused by the electronic attack, failed to detect them until it was too late. The first explosion rocked a hegemony cruiser. Its shields, designed to stop energy weapons, offered little protection against the primitive but powerful nuclear blast. The ship's hull cracked open like an egg. More explosions followed. The hegemony fleet, caught by surprise, struggled to respond. "Impossible," Xandrath shouted. "Their weapons are too primitive to harm our ships." But the evidence was before his eyes. 3 hegemony ships were already crippled, their shields overwhelmed by weapons they had considered obsolete. From the dark side of Earth's moon, Captain Martinez brought the U.S. Vanguard into the battle. The massive ship, hidden for decades, was Earth's secret weapon. Its experimental drives allowed it to move with incredible speed despite its size. The Vanguard headed straight for the hegemony flagship. Martinez had studied the alien ship's design from the scans Earth had secretly taken. She knew exactly where to hit it. "Target their engine nacelles," she ordered her weapons officer. "Fire when ready." The Vanguard's main cannon fired a concentrated beam that sliced through the flagship's engine section. The massive hegemony vessel didn't explode, but its engines died instantly. It began to drift, powerless. Meanwhile, Dr. Reed used the confusion to broadcast manipulated communications to the hegemony fleet. Messages that appeared to come from their own commanders, ordering ships to retreat or change position. "This is not possible," Xandrath said as he watched his fleet falling into chaos. "These humans are savages. Their technology is centuries behind ours." The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, 7 hegemony vessels had been destroyed or disabled. Not a single Earth ship had been lost. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, "we must retreat and regroup. We need reinforcements." Admiral Xandrath stared at the view screen in disbelief. His damaged flagship limped away from Earth, followed by the remaining hegemony ships. "This isn't over," he said, his voice cold with rage. "The humans will pay for this humiliation." On the Defiant, Miller allowed himself a small smile. The first battle had been won. But he knew the hegemony would return, and next time, they would not underestimate humanity's museum collection of ships. The hegemony returned 3 days later. This time, they brought 200 ships. Admiral Xandrath had called in forces from nearby star systems. His wounded pride demanded a swift and crushing victory over the humans who had humiliated him. "No more underestimating these primitives," he told his commanders. "We will overwhelm them with numbers." Earth had used the short break to prepare. Miller knew that the next attack would be much harder to repel. "They won't fall for the same tricks twice," he told his officers on the Defiant. "We need something new." As the hegemony fleet approached Earth, something unexpected happened. Thousands of satellites that orbited the planet, weather monitors, communication relays, and observation platforms, suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. The hegemony had scanned these satellites before, but had dismissed them as decorative or primitive technology. "Activate the defense grid," Miller ordered. The satellites began firing at the approaching hegemony ships. Most of their weapons were too small to cause serious damage, but they created a screen of constant fire that forced the alien vessels to raise their shields and slow their advance. While the hegemony was distracted by the satellite defense, Operation Antiquity entered its second phase. Earth's hidden fleet emerged from secret bases throughout the solar system. The old ships that had been mothballed for decades now joined the newer vessels. Engineer Porter watched from the Defiant as his latest creations entered the battle. He had taken captured hegemony technology and combined it with human designs to create prototype ships unlike anything seen before. "Will they work?" Miller asked him. "They've never been tested in battle," Porter admitted, "but in simulations they performed better than expected." Lieutenant Grant led a small squad of fighters using attack patterns she had developed specifically to confuse hegemony targeting systems. The small, fast ships darted between the massive alien vessels, drawing their fire and creating openings for larger Earth ships to exploit. Captain Martinez in the U.S. Vanguard had made an important discovery during the first battle. When hegemony shields were exposed to a specific radiation frequency, they developed weak spots. She shared this information with the fleet, and now every Earth ship adjusted their weapons accordingly. "Target the weak points in their shields," Martinez ordered her weapons officer. "Focus fire on their engine sections." The battle spread throughout the solar system. Earth ships used planets, moons, and asteroids for cover, emerging to strike, and then disappearing again. It was a strategy Admiral Dawson had found in ancient naval warfare texts, guerrilla tactics from Earth's past applied to space combat. Despite Earth's clever tactics, the sheer number of hegemony ships began to tell. 3 human vessels had already been destroyed, and several more were damaged. The satellite defense grid was failing as the aliens systematically targeted the orbital platforms. "We can't win a war of attrition," Miller said grimly, watching as another Earth ship took heavy damage. "They have too many ships." On the hegemony command ship, Admiral Xandrath allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. The humans were fighting well, but his superior numbers were winning the day. "Their primitive tricks cannot save them," he said. "Prepare the final assault on their planet." But then something happened that the Admiral had never experienced in his long military career. His communications officer turned to him with a look of shock. "Admiral, we're receiving an emergency signal from our home fleet. They're requesting immediate reinforcements." "What?" Xandrath couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Who would dare attack the hegemony core worlds?" "Unknown, sir. The message is breaking up, but they specifically requested your fleet to return." For the first time in over a century, a hegemony fleet commander faced a difficult decision: continue his attack on a stubborn but seemingly outmatched enemy, or respond to a threat to the hegemony itself. As Xandrath hesitated, the tide of battle hung in the balance. And aboard the Defiant, Commander Miller prepared to play his final card. Miller gathered his senior officers in the Defiant's command room. The ship shook as it took fire from a hegemony cruiser. "We can't win this fight conventionally," Miller said. "We need to strike directly at their command structure." "You mean the flagship?" Lieutenant Grant asked. Miller nodded. "If we can capture Admiral Xandrath, we might force a ceasefire." "Capture?" Engineer Porter looked shocked. "Their flagship is surrounded by 50 ships. We can't get close to it." "Not as ourselves," Miller said. "But what if they thought we were one of them?" Porter suddenly understood. "The Trojan horse concept. We disguise one of our ships as a damaged hegemony vessel." Dr. Reed nodded slowly. "I studied their communication protocols. If we can copy their signals correctly, we might fool them long enough to get close." Miller turned to Captain Martinez, whose face appeared on a screen from the U.S. Vanguard. "Lisa, I need you to create a diversion. Something big enough to draw away their main force." Martinez smiled grimly. "I think I can manage that, Commander." The plan came together quickly. Porter and his team began work on disguising the Defiant. Using salvaged parts from a damaged hegemony ship, they altered its external appearance. Dr. Reed programmed their communication system to mimic hegemony signals. "This is the craziest plan I've ever heard," Admiral Dawson said when Miller explained it. "But it might just work." 6 hours later, the U.S. Vanguard led 30 Earth ships in a direct assault on the right flank of the hegemony fleet. The aliens responded as expected, moving ships to counter the attack. "Now's our chance," Miller said. The Defiant, now looking like a damaged Hegemony scout ship, limped toward the alien flagship. Lieutenant Grant had studied Hegemony flight patterns and mimicked them perfectly. "They're hailing us," Dr. Reed said tensely. "Send the distress signal we prepared," Miller ordered. For a terrible moment, they waited. Then the flagship responded, ordering them to dock for repairs. The plan was working. As the Defiant docked with the massive flagship, Miller prepared his boarding team. Along with Lieutenant Grant and Dr. Reed, he would lead a small group of soldiers onto the alien ship. "Remember," Dr. Reed said, "the Hegemony relies heavily on automation and AI. They have few actual security personnel. Their weakness is physical infiltration. And we have this," Porter added, handing Miller a small device. "It's a virus that will disrupt their ship-to-ship targeting systems. If you can upload it to their main computer, it will cause chaos in their fleet." The boarding party moved quickly through the alien ship. Dr. Reed's knowledge of Hegemony culture proved invaluable. When they encountered crew members, she spoke to them in their own language, explaining they were a repair team. They reached the command center with surprising ease. The Hegemony, overconfident in their technology, had never expected humans to board one of their vessels. "Now," Miller shouted as they burst into the command room. The Hegemony officers were taken completely by surprise. In the confusion, Lieutenant Grant reached the main computer and uploaded Porter's virus. Admiral Xandrath rose from his command chair, his face showing shock and outrage. "How dare you?" "Your ships are now targeting each other," Miller interrupted. "I suggest you order them to stand down before they start destroying one another." On the main view screen, they could see the Hegemony fleet in disarray. Ships were firing randomly, their targeting systems compromised. "This is impossible," Xandrath whispered. "How could primitives like you defeat our technology?" "You made a mistake," Miller said. "You judged us by our technology, not by our determination or creativity. You thought our ships were a museum collection, but you never stopped to think about why we kept them." Two human soldiers moved behind Xandrath, weapons ready. "Admiral, you're now our prisoner," Miller continued. "I suggest you order your fleet to cease fire, or we'll see how many of your ships destroy each other before the virus runs its course." Xandrath looked around at the humans who had somehow infiltrated his supposedly impenetrable flagship. His pride warred with his sense of duty to his fleet. "How could we have been so wrong about you?" he asked quietly. Miller didn't answer. The question wasn't meant for him anyway. 1 week after the battle, representatives from Earth and the Hegemony met on neutral ground, a space station orbiting the moon. Admiral Xandrath sat opposite Miller, his blue skin pale from his time in human custody. Behind him stood 3 Hegemony officials. Across the table, Dr. Reed led the human diplomatic team. "The terms are simple," Dr. Reed said. "Earth will not join the Hegemony as a protectorate. We demand recognition as a full member with equal rights." A Hegemony official named Venlar shook his head. "Impossible. No species at your technological level has ever been granted full membership. No species at our technological level has ever captured a Hegemony flagship," Miller pointed out. The negotiations continued for hours. The Hegemony Council was divided. Some wanted revenge for the humiliation they had suffered. Others called for a reassessment of human capabilities. "Perhaps we judged them too quickly," one official admitted privately to Xandrath. "Their approach to technology is unusual, but effective." Meanwhile, Engineer Porter had begun a collaborative project with several open-minded Hegemony scientists. They were amazed by the creative ways humans had modified and combined technologies. "You use quantum field generators to power your coffee makers," one alien scientist said, sounding both confused and impressed. Porter laughed. "We use whatever works. That's the human way." As the days passed, the relationship between humans and the Hegemony slowly changed. Captain Martinez was appointed Earth's military liaison to the Hegemony. Her first task was to establish protocols to prevent future misunderstandings. Lieutenant Grant started training a mixed team of human and alien tactical officers. The aliens were skeptical at first, but soon came to respect her unconventional thinking. In battle, the unexpected path is often the most effective, she told her students. That's why studying ancient tactics can give you an advantage. Your enemy won't expect you to use strategies from 1,000 years ago. Admiral Dawson, though still officially retired, established an academy where both human and alien students could learn from each other. He insisted that the outdated knowledge that had saved humanity must be preserved. Never discard the old simply because it's old, he told his first class. Every tool has its use if applied correctly. 3 months after the battle, Commander Miller was invited to address the Hegemony Council. He stood before the gathered representatives of 47 species, feeling the weight of their stares. "You called our fleet a museum collection," he began. "You meant it as an insult, but perhaps it was a compliment we didn't recognize. Museums preserve knowledge from the past, knowledge that might otherwise be lost." He looked around the room, meeting alien eyes without flinching. Humanity has always kept one foot in its past while reaching for the future. We learn from our history. We adapt old ideas for new purposes. And we never, ever give up. The council chamber was silent when he finished speaking. Then, slowly, one alien representative began to tap his fingers on the table, the hegemony equivalent of applause. Others joined in. Earth was granted full membership in the galactic hegemony that day. Not as a primitive curiosity, but as a species that had earned respect through courage and ingenuity. As Miller left the council chamber, Admiral Xandrath approached him. "You have changed the hegemony," the Admiral said. "For thousands of years, we measured advancement only by technological achievement. Now we must reconsider." Miller smiled. "Sometimes the oldest lessons are the most valuable. Never underestimate an opponent, no matter how outmatched they appear to be." The hegemony adopted a new motto in the years that followed. Respect the past, for it may well be your future, and humanity's museum collection of ships was given a place of honor in the hegemony's historical archives, not as relics of a primitive species, but as a reminder that ingenuity and courage could overcome any technological gap.